Hi, everyone. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. It is the nighttime of June 17th, 2024, already the 12th day of Sivan, 5784. It's been a rough weekend here in Israel, as I'm sure you've all heard. Yesterday was an incredibly difficult day, Motzei Shabbat, and yesterday when we heard ended up losing 12 soldiers over the weekend. And it's very upsetting. It's a feeling like, what's going to happen? How are we going to get out of this? Where is the leadership? It's just right now it's very heavy. But I have a wonderful thing also that happened. It was the brit of my grandson. I told you last week that he was born, and my daughter, who gives her children very interesting names. So on Shabbat we were there in Eli, and they named him Tuv Eretz, which means the goodness of the land. Not a usual name, although someone who was there said that they had a daughter actually named Tuv. But it's expressing what we feel and why we're here and how ultimately we will stay here and we will win this. It's just a very difficult time to have to get through. But in the meantime, so instead of just like crying to this podcast, and as you know, I have done that before, I decided that I needed to be inspired and we all needed to be inspired. So I invited someone from Sweden. Yes, everybody, we have listeners in Sweden, in Gothenburg, Sweden. Vera Berzak, who I'm going to bet is one of the few Israelis who's living in Sweden. She's joining us there this evening. She's just put her children to sleep. Vera, thank you so much for joining me here on Rejuvenation.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us how an Israeli girl ends up in a very cold climate. We'll talk about that in a minute. What's your background?
What's my background? I was born in Russia. We moved to Israel in 1990 when I was 3. So I grew up in Israel and I studied in Israel. I studied theater in Jerusalem. And then I lived around Tel Aviv. And I actually went on an artist residency in Sweden. That's how I came for the first time. And then I met the man who is now my husband. So this is why I moved eventually to Sweden. And we have 3 kids. And right now we're living here. So I've been living here for 6.5 years.
Okay. Are there other Israelis there?
Yes, I have Israeli friends here, of course. Not very many. I think there are more in Stockholm.
Uh-huh.
I guess they keep a lower profile, but they are here.
Right. And how, I mean, just as a segue, how is it to like have a Jewish life there? Can you get food if you need, the holidays, if you need, I don't know, candles for Hanukkah? Like, how does it work?
Yes, you can. Well, there are in Stockholm, it's a bit easier for them because they can go and buy. In Sweden, you also often would have to order online, but there is a shop who delivers from Stockholm. There is a small kosher shop. It's very small and it's open only once a week.
Yeah, I was there. We were in Stockholm for a day. It's very small and it wasn't open the day we were there. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But there is like the school and the preschool and the elderly home. All of them Jewish, are in the same building, and the very little kosher shop is there too.
How far is that from you?
There is Chabad that I think they can get that from sometimes.
So how far is Stockholm from you? Excuse my ignorance of Sweden.
By train, like 3 to 4 hours.
Oh,
by car. I made it once by car. It was more than 5 hours.
Wow. You don't jump there. You don't just run there for the afternoon.
You don't jump to Stockholm. No, you plan it well ahead, especially if you're going to take the train because the prices go up.
Right, I'm sure. So what do people, I mean, I have to ask you because the first time I've interviewed someone who lives in Sweden, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
What do people do in Gothenburg? Is there like a main commodity or a main trade or high tech or what are the
there is Volvo.
Volvo. Okay. That was my first car.
Yeah.
Great car.
Many people who come from abroad, I think, would work there. And somewhere there would be some high tech. There is like the university and it's spread all over the city. So there are quite a lot of people that I know who are international who came to work, for example, in the university or There is a college that's quite a big one, Sharmesh. So those who come from Israel, I would say mostly like computer science or university,
Right.
working in the university, and
Mm-hmm.
their families.
Right. Right. Okay. So, so how did you get on my radar? How were we connected here?
Well, I know Erika.
Right. Erica listens to this podcast, and she's the one who
Yes,
connected us. She told me
she's
about you.
amazing. She's a
Yes.
good friend. And we've known her. She's a friend of the family for, yeah, probably since we came here,
Mm-hmm.
since I came to Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And Erika is part of the community here, and she was at the manifestation that we will shortly talk about.
Right.
And so I think she contacted you and told you about.
She wrote to me. She's written to me every once in a while if she likes a certain show that I did, or just to say hello and just, you should
Mhm.
know that we listen to you in Sweden and how important it is, which was really nice to hear how important it is because you're far from the action for good and for
Yeah.
bad. To hear voices of regular people, not just read the newspaper and hear from the politicians, but just
Yeah.
hear from little people like me what's going on without any filters, which everyone knows I don't
Yeah.
have. And then she told me about you. So I said, amazing. I want to interview her. So she arranged the whole thing. So what are you doing these days that got Erica all excited?
Maybe I'll start from the beginning.
Please.
So, because it started at the end of May, there is this pro-Palestinian encampment outside the university building, the main university building, as in many other cities in Europe and America.
Right.
It is illegal. I mean, they are occupying basically a land that is belongs to the municipality, but they are not living and they are not being forced to live by the municipality. And I basically try to avoid that place. But the other day I did pass by and I saw a bit of their signs, and I see and can understand that they feel frustrated with the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza. But it really hurt me that there was nothing about the suffering on the Israeli side, and particularly the hostages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were not mentioned in any way. And it was shortly after I watched that horrible film that Hamas filmed of the abduction of the soldiers, the female soldiers, and another film, Screams Before Silence, and it walks with me all the time, and I just felt this cannot be so because it's a very central part of the city. So people, Swedes, just normal Swedes, they don't know much about the conflict, they don't know much about the war. They pass by and they come there to gather information as if this is a reliable source of information because there will be someone sitting there explaining why they have these demands that they have from the university to stop cooperating with Israeli university. And I felt that for those people who walk there and see only that, I need to complete the picture and show that there are hostages, that there is suffering on the Israeli side as well, that there is Hamas, for example, who is not mentioned in any way in that pro-Palestinian manifestation. So I went basically with the sign and with the tent, since my thought was I compliment their encampment. So it was a black tent that symbolizes a tunnel.
Wow.
And the sign said, "My kidnapped sisters are subject to sexual abuse in Hamas tunnels since October 7th."
So just to back up, because this just happened a couple of weeks ago, how was October 7th covered in Sweden? Was it on the news? Did people hear what was happening, or you really only knew about it because you're Israeli and
It
you
was
different
covered,
sources?
but much of the information came in late. I cannot quite say if it was on purpose or they were just a bit late, because
Mm-hmm.
it might be that they didn't know. For example, the Nova Festival, I remember thinking, why is no one speaking about it? Why is it not in the news? It did come later. The sexual violence of October 7 hardly came.
Wow.
I actually wrote a few debate articles about it, about the silence around that. And so it started coming very late.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But the focus very, very quickly went. Oh, and of course, on the day of October 7, I think was the same day, there were celebrations in
Do,
Malmö.
do you
So
have a large Muslim population in Gothenburg
yes,
or in Sweden in general? You do?
yes,
Yes? Mm-hmm.
yes, we have a
Mm-hmm.
large one.
Mm-hmm.
And those celebrations, they were filmed and they were not
Right.
stopped, um, which was very brutal reality bite.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and then very quickly the focus, I can say, went to Gaza,
Right.
um, and
Mm-hmm.
to how Israel is
Mm-hmm.
just brutally attacking.
Very
Uh,
one-sided.
it's very,
Have you been back to Israel since October 7th?
yes, I was in Israel in June. No, now it's June. I was in Israel at the end of February. It was, yes, my grandfather sadly passed away.
Oh, I'm
We came
sorry.
for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was very powerful for me to visit. I visited my parents and my family. They live in Beersheba. This whole reality of seeing all those pictures of the hostages and realizing that suddenly there are to me, it felt like two levels of reality. There is the normal life that is not really normal anymore, and there
No.
is the war, and there is the hostages, and you kind of live with those two all the time with that pain.
Yes.
Yeah, but in a way, it was also a relief because I was feeling it in Sweden as well. But when you
Mm-hmm.
almost the only one, of course, my Israeli friends could understand it very well. But what still, especially if you're in the culture scene, no one else shares your feelings here in Sweden.
Right.
You feel very lonely and very disappointed with people. So and being in Israel made me really. Oh, I obviously felt at home, and I felt like I can share the pain, and people can share my pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
That's what family is, the
yes,
tribe. Yes,
I think it's
absolutely.
just stayed with me, and then I had to act on it.
Mm-hmm. So what were the reactions when you put
So
out that
that
pen?
day, there was a journalist who came and wrote about that. I will just mention that when I came the first day, my mother-in-law came with me, and then there was a friend who joined for a few hours, and we let the police know, we let the Jewish security know, and they actually let the police know. So they were there as well, and we sat there for about 6 hours, and we had much more positive responses than we thought. I
Wow.
was I was really not expecting anything positive, but maybe I realized that maybe my picture of humanity has been quite dark. Many people either came up to us and said thank you for being here because it is so one-sided, and we don't agree with that with what is happening. We're sitting right next to the pro-Palestinian encampment, and just sharing the pain of
Mm-hmm.
what happened on October 7 and the hostages. Many people who did not dare to come, they passed by and just gave us like a thumb up or a sign of a thank you, and it was very meaningful.
But they were
Um,
afraid that they would be attacked if they came to you?
I think so.
Hmm.
There is such a fear, yes.
Were you afraid?
Um, I was a bit afraid, but when I felt afraid, I imagined to myself, try to imagine what it's like to be a female hostage in Gaza, and any other fear um,
Yes. Uh,
evaporated.
it's so true. Everything else pales in comparison. Whenever something now frightens me, I think, oh my God, compared to what they're going through, this is absolutely nothing.
Yes,
Absolutely nothing. It's definitely a different scale of reality or surreality,
yes.
if we
And
can
also
say.
gives you an urgency to do something since you're out here, you must do something
Well,
for them.
but not everybody's doing that. You are, but
Well, I
not
was
everybody
also
is.
waiting for someone else to do it, and I guess at some point I realized that if there is no one, I will do it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not in my nature, I'm not a very activist person. I just felt that this cannot continue. Someone has to
Mm-hmm.
do something. So, so there was a journalist who wrote about that morning, and the article was published in the afternoon. And then many people contacted me and asked, when am I there again? And said that they want to come and join. Um,
Really?
Yes, it was really.
And so that happened. You went back and
Yes.
people
So
joined
then I
you.
went back a few days later and I said when I will be there, and people were just coming. People were coming and they wanted to, they sat there for a few hours. They brought us food and something to drink and yellow flowers. I thought that was very touching.
Wow,
Um,
that is touching.
yes.
Yellow flowers. Wow. Well,
We got some donations to buy more tents because I was asked if I want something, and I said I would have liked to make it a bit bigger. So we bought more black tents, and we had like our
mhm,
encampment. And this continued now for a few weeks. We're not there every day, but people continue coming. There are people from the Christian community who come and support as well.
mhm.
Um,
Are what's the main religion in Sweden or what?
they're very anti-religion,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like the Swedish church is not very religious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but those who are probably Christians, and they're
Right.
to a large extent on Israel side.
Mm-hmm. That's nice to hear.
Mhm.
I wonder if they're understanding the threat that this kind of jihadism is posing in Europe. Is there some kind of understanding?
Yes, I think they understand, and they have some sort of guts to say that normal Swedes often do not have. Which
Mm-hmm.
is also what they told us. We don't feel comfortable in our studies, in our work, to say that we don't agree with this sort of consensus that free Palestine.
Right.
Um, so those people come a bit more sort of quietly and speak to us, but Christians too, they often they come and they volunteer. So last week my daughter was sick, so I couldn't be there, and we had people coming, and it continued sort of without me. And among the people who came were people from the Christian
Wow, that's
community.
beautiful. So it's restored a bit your faith in humanity.
It really did. I really felt like it was healing. I was so positively surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There,
yes,
yeah, there are good people out there, but it starts with being intimidated and being afraid to say what you think. And that's the worst because then we don't
yes,
know. But then people get terrorized and are afraid and really are afraid, physically afraid.
yes.
That's what we're dealing with here. And it
Hmm.
seems like parts of Europe, I don't know about Sweden, are dealing with that as well. I mean, it's obviously worse in Paris and in Germany.
Hmm.
Yeah. So are you nervous about that as an
I had
Israeli Jew?
moments when I was nervous. I got a
Hmm.
bit of. There was the other day. There was a young girl actually who came and passed an envelope with my name on it and asked someone to give it to me, and then she went away. And then it looked like a very cute envelope with my name on it. And then when I opened it, there was the sign of a watermelon that I understood that in Israel people don't quite know what it means.
No, what does
It
that
means
mean?
the Palestinian struggle because it's the colors of the
Oh, it's red
Palestinian
and
flag, and
green.
it has really
Okay.
become a symbol.
Red, green.
So other people immediately told me that it's a threat and I need to go to the police. Um,
So did you?
well, the police were nearby, so I told them, but I don't, nothing,
Hmm.
I think, and probably it wasn't her, probably someone sent her. So it have a few incidents like that happened, not only to me, to other people, some sort of hints that, there are in that other camp, there are criminals there, so you should be careful, which also can be easily interpreted as a
A
threat.
threat.
It can be scary.
Hmm.
I admit. It's in my case because I wrote several articles that were published before with my name on it. I've been a bit on my guard for a while, but then I thought
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
out there already. So,
How are your Israeli friends reacting to this? The ones in Gothenburg.
and they were very, very positive,
Yeah,
especially my close friends. Yes, they came and sat there we sat together for many days.
wonderful. And how about your Swedish friends, those who are not familiar with Israel or haven't been or aren't Jewish?
Well, the ones who are friends of
Hmm.
mine or of the family are very positive because the ones who wouldn't be, they are not friends
Right.
anymore.
They're not your friends anymore. Yes, we've
A
all
quick
done some
selection
kind of
process after that.
very much so. Since October, we've all weeded people out of our lives. Yes, no
Mm.
patience for that.
Even in Israel.
Yes, even in Israel, in America. Yeah, it seems pretty clear where the evil lies, and if you in any way support it, or not just support it, don't condemn it, then I'm done.
Yes,
I don't have patience for that anymore. The good people in the world are fighting for our lives right now. We really are. This is
yes,
much bigger than just a little skirmish between Israel and the Hamas,
yes.
and people need to understand that. Yeah.
I really agree that it's bigger, and it's even here in Sweden. I had a realization the other day that because we are one of the tactics there of intimidation is of playing very loud music. There is a pro-Palestinian theme song here, and driving around us, or kind of making it so that we cannot speak to each other even, and sometimes shouting violent things at us. And I realized that it's really, for them, I don't think it's about Israel and Gaza. It's
No.
about Sweden. It's about self-expression. It's about whether or not someone else is allowed to show his opinion, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to shut us up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because they have for a long time been dominating that territory. No one moved them. No one spoke against them. And I think that this is part of the reason why normal Swedes, as I would call them, or
Yeah.
just, who don't have a connection to Israel or Palestine, that's okay too, um, come and show support to us being there, because I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a sort of reminder that it's still a democratic country. There still can be another opinion spoken in public. Um,
Right.
I
Right.
think this is it has become quite clear here the louder you are, the more you sort of get hurt and get heard, and no one wants to mess with you. But it's really not. It's not the Swedish way either. So it's very sad to see that it has become like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
we can.
They're not just loud, they're violent. And that's what scares me.
Yes,
It's one thing to say your opinion, it's another thing to threaten people who
yes,
disagree with you.
yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's very different. Yeah. I from what I know of Swedes, I don't picture Swedes being loud and jumping up and down. Maybe it's too cold. I don't know.
Not even in the summer.
Not even in the
No, I mean they like to agree with each other. So they like being, having a peaceful atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was
Right.
really going against norms in Swedish society, for example, to play very loud music in a very central part of the city. I mean, we were obviously bothered, but think about all the neighbors. It's so
Obnoxious.
disrespectful. It's really not their way.
Right. Well, it's not fitting in with the culture. It's actually trying to make the culture fit to who you
Yes,
are, instead of being respectful of the culture and the people that have taken you in.
yes.
But that's the modus operandi. So let me ask you something on a different front. With what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine, does that affect? Because we hear every once in a while about Denmark, about Finland, getting a little nervous.
Mhm.
The Swedes also, or you're okay with
Well, they
not?
joined NATO.
Right.
I think
That's
that's the main
that's a
reason.
big step. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Now there were EU elections here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of the campaign slogans would handle. This is in Swedish, sorry.
That's
Would
okay.
deal with who can kind of secure the country from Russia.
Right. Right.
Um, it's not as much in the news now as Gaza is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I think it's still there. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, Putin is taking advantage of the distraction towards the Middle East.
Mm,
I'm sure he hasn't suddenly decided to become a
mm,
Mother Teresa in any
yes.
stretch of the imagination. No, because we were on a Baltic cruise a few years ago, and obviously it's not a deep tour of the area. It was a day in Helsinki, it was a day in Stockholm, a day in
Mhm.
Oslo, 2 days in St. Petersburg, with a valet included. So I got to know a little bit about the area and learned a lot about it. And a lot of the tensions and a lot of the history, which is totally fascinating, of course, what's
Mhm.
happened there. But so it's kind of, I keep an eye a little bit. It interests me what's happening there, because you live in a country and I live in a country that's subject to the empires and the crazy people's wills to a great degree. We just want to live in peace and in quiet,
Yes,
and not be threatened. But
this is also what
unfortunately,
we're trying to
exactly.
say with this demonstration whenever I am being interviewed, is that messages in that pro-Palestinian camp, like from the river to the sea of Free Palestine, are not messages of peace as
No.
much as, you even ideologically think that it's the right thing. It means a war that will go on for years and years and many more deaths
And the
on the
destruction of
Palestinian side,
Israel.
if you know, and the
The
destruction of
destruction of
Israel,
Israel,
of
yes.
course. But my point with that is to people who are kind of on the, care about the Palestinians, it's not for their benefit either. We
Right.
want peace. We want everyone to, to live. So you should
Hmm.
join
Hmm.
our message and not.
Yeah. On
Um,
October 6th, Israel wasn't bothering anybody.
yes.
So,
So it's,
exactly.
people get a bit lost there, I think.
Yeah.
Um, maybe they think they're doing the right thing for people in Gaza, but they're not. Uh,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
another thing is that, often because you mentioned Putin, so it sadly enough has become so that Bucha, for example, if you remember that horrific story
Yes.
in Ukraine, is compared to
Gaza.
Gaza,
Right.
and Israel is compared to Russia.
Right.
And slogans like, if you spoke against Putin, why aren't you speaking against Israel?
And Netanyahu was a war criminal and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Do you still have relatives in Russia? You said you were born there?
No,
No, everyone's
no.
out.
I
Hmm.
wanted to tell you one more short anecdote.
Please, please.
Because you mentioned if they feel worried about Russia. So there is actually a company here. It's called Elbit, that
Yes.
they are an Israeli company.
Very well known.
Did you know that they had a branch in Sweden?
No, I did not. Hmm.
So, and why do they have a branch in Sweden? Is most probably because Sweden feels that they need to secure the country in a better way. So,
Hmm.
so this is kind of a clear sign that they feel worried, that they were even, ready to cooperate with an Israeli company. So,
Hmm.
so there is like this constant attempt to um, chase Elbit out by activists. Don't
BDS
to work with
style.
them and then not to cooperate with them, and
Hmm.
but it's a very strong cooperation. And a few weeks ago there was a bomb that was placed in their building, but it was
Wow.
discovered in time. Uh,
Hmm.
which again, if you ask about whether we feel safe doing what we're doing, it's obviously makes you. That day, the police was very close to us. I remember thinking, well, did something happen? Apparently, yes. Uh,
Hmm.
But then on the other hand, a few days later, there was a big article about Elbit, like a positive article in the newspaper. So, it's like showing that, what they're doing is necessary for the country.
Right. Well, interesting. You speak and read Swedish fluently?
Yes, but not in a very high level,
Right. You're
but
not getting a PhD in Swedish. Okay,
yes,
but you
not,
can.
but I can have conversations
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I
Well,
can read and understand most.
right. Right. It's not an easy language to learn, I understand, is it?
It's not an easy language to pronounce.
Mm-hmm.
But to learn, it's not, it in many ways is similar to English, I would say.
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
Yes,
Which isn't so easy either.
no, but you kind of already, right, get it.
Right. Many exceptions to the rules. Can you say something for us in Swedish? Something about Israel? Or
Um,
I don't know.
something about Israel.
Yeah, whatever.
Jag älskar Israel means I love Israel. um, vi vill ha fred means we want peace.
Thank you. Vera, thank you so much for your time and for everything that you're doing. You're very brave. I know you
Thank you.
don't think you are and you don't want to be, but You've stood up where no one else has. And that is very brave. You just be safe. And come back to Israel one day. Just had to throw that.
We're actually planning. We're waiting for
Good.
the right moment. Thank you so much.
Good. It was lovely to virtually meet you. And I hope one day to see you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
You will.
You too. All right, everyone. Well, that was fantastic, if I do say so myself. I hope wherever you are well, and that this is a better week than last. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. Take care, everyone. Thanks to Ben and to Tabitha. And goodbye for now.